Have you thought about how you would respond to ransomware if your company were affected? Statistics show us that in 2020, every 11 seconds, another company in the world was hit with ransomware. Sadly, it's not become a question of if you will be hit with ransomware or a cyber attack, but when. In today's video, we're going to look at some tips to help you effectively, strategically respond to a ransomware attack so you can make it out at the end of the ordeal on top. Hi, I'm William, and welcome back to the SMB Security YouTube channel, where we're focused on helping small and mid-sized companies improve their security defenses and reduce the risk of breaches. Today, we're going to look at 7 strategies for effectively dealing with ransomware so that you make it out of the incident on top, ready to move forward in your company. Before we get into the tips, check out the link in the description. We've put together a ransomware response cheat sheet that will be very useful for you if you find yourself in the unfortunate predicament that you're having to deal with a ransomware attack, or you want to get ahead of the game and you want to see what steps you should take to prevent it, how to respond. Be sure to check out that cheat sheet in the description. So the first mistake we see companies make when they are responding to a ransomware attack is someone says ransomware has attacked. It's noticed files are decrypted. There's a README file telling you to pay a ransom. People can panic, and people want to rightfully prevent the spread of the virus, the spread of that ransomware attack. So they'll many times go and start shutting off computers. And that is a bad thing to do. When you shut off your computers, you can delete and get rid of valuable forensic data that isn't stored inside of the memory of the computer. And in some cases, you can help that ransomware further spread. So for an example, a recent ransomware response we assisted with, there were Hyper-V servers. These are virtual machine host servers in Windows, the Windows environment, and they had virtual machines on them. All of the virtual machines had ransomware deployed to them, but they were still operational. Among these virtual machines were domain controllers and other important servers for this organization to continue limping along while the ransomware response was taking place. Unfortunately, some of the virtual machines were rebooted, and at that point, the VDH files, or VHD files rather, those virtual hard disk files, those were encrypted when those VMs were rebooted, and they became completely inoperable. At that point, the company lost every domain controller they had. All of their important servers for business function were no longer available. So instead of turning off the computer, unplug the Ethernet. If they're on Wi-Fi, unplug access points. That's a quick way to kill network communication, and hibernate them if you need to. The second thing I want to talk about is insurance. Hopefully you have cyber insurance. If you don't have insurance, be sure that you get with a cybersecurity insurance provider and get signed up. Cybersecurity insurance can be a lifesaver when it comes to a ransomware attack. These things can be very, very expensive. Even for a small and mid-sized company, it can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. $50,000 to $100,000 for a small company is very common. So when responding to ransomware, be sure that you notify your cybersecurity organization promptly. And you're going to want to get your legal team involved. It's a good idea to have an attorney who specializes in cybersecurity, as there are many nuances, compliance regulations. It's a very niche topic, and not the average attorney is going to understand it. So before a security incident ever even happens, find a cybersecurity attorney. Maybe you put them on retainer. Maybe you set up that you will consult with them if an incident happens. Have their contact information ready, and then contact them, formulate a plan, and then contact insurance. There are a lot of legal risk, legal obligations, compliance risk that go with a ransomware or any cybersecurity attack. And we're going to get to another tip in a moment that you'll really want to have an attorney for. Now, when you contact cybersecurity insurance, it is very likely that they already have a cybersecurity consulting company, incident response company, forensics. Maybe these are all one, maybe they're separate, but it's very likely that they already have this lined up for you. You're not going to have to go find a company to use. They've made the decisions for you. They have the companies they use. And this could be a problem. If you have a company you want to use, that could be an issue. But for the most part, cybersecurity insurance providers have already lined up who they want you to use and who they will pay. So when you get cybersecurity insurance, it's a good idea to build a relationship with these people, find out who their providers are, and contact them, get to know them, have a relationship with them so that if you ever have to use their services, you're not starting completely cold. The next tip for responding to ransomware is you want to set up a completely clean communication system. Here's what I mean. If an attacker has deployed ransomware in your environment, it's very likely that they have domain administrator credentials or some kind of elevated privileges, and they've possibly, if they have access to deploy ransomware, it's possible that they have collected credentials. You may not be able to trust that your email systems are clean and that the attacker is not lurking in there. And the last thing you want to do is tip off an attacker, a ransomware threat actor, as to the decisions you're making, what you're doing, and give them the element of surprise where they can preempt you and start taking actions that could be in your detriment. Maybe you have an alternate domain already purchased for your company. Maybe you should purchase an alternate domain and you could spin up an Office 365 email system, a G Suite email system, maybe use Proton Mail or something. But that's very important to do. When you do this, be sure that you consult with your legal team and you begin looping them in all communications around the incident. Here's why. If you have the unfortunate circumstance that you have to go to court, maybe you have a vendor that sues you because of damages for the ransomware, orders weren't fulfilled, whatever the case might be. If you have legal repercussions because of this ransomware incident, having the attorney CC'd into all of your communications, sitting in all of your meetings, if your meetings are recorded, for the minutes of those meetings that are recorded, having an attorney present, having an attorney in all of your email communications gives you attorney-client privilege. And in the unfortunate incident that you have legal repercussions, you have some protection. You may not have to turn over your emails. If you do have to turn them over, then you have, again, a clean email communication. You don't have to turn over your complete email system. Another tip is to set up a completely out-of-band communication method. We talked about the email or clean system with your attorneys involved for the incident, but you may also want a real-time communication system. As your employees, as your response team, as the companies you hire, your cybersecurity insurance provider brings in, as you are all working, you might want real-time communication. So setting up a secure real-time communication could be valuable to you. You might want to use something like Signal, Telegram, or any of those encrypted messaging systems. Maybe if you buy Office 365, maybe you use Teams, maybe use Google Chat if you buy a G Suite domain for this incident. Real-time communication can be very useful, and that is up to you if you feel like it's important, if it will help you, but that's something to keep in mind. The next tip to keep in mind is be sure that you secure your backups. If you have backups in place and your backups are regularly occurring every 15 minutes, every 10 minutes, whatever that cycle might be, you're going to want to be sure that you kill that switch and stop backups when ransomware is deployed. Hopefully you have a few backup systems. Remember, in cybersecurity, we sometimes say 2 is 1 and 1 is none when it comes to backups, because one of them is likely to fail. Hopefully you have 2. You can leave one going so you have continuous backup still. The other one you kill so that your ransom files are not being backed up and overriding your good files. Now, depending on how your backups are set up, this might not be an issue. You might be able to go back to a further point back in history, further time back. Go ahead, kill that backup, stop those ransom files from being backed up so you have a completely clean reset backup that you can restore from. Tip number 6 is to contact law enforcement, and you're going to want to do this, facilitate this communication with law enforcement through the attorney that you've brought in to help you with the incident. You might want to notify the FBI, other law enforcement agencies, local law enforcement, depending on the magnitude of the incident. You might have obligations for notification. If you are in healthcare or any of the other regulated industries, you have to also do investigations to be sure that data was not exfiltrated during the attack. And that's all going to happen in your incident response. But you want to notify law enforcement. If you are in the unfortunate predicament that you don't have backups or backups have failed, or you feel like you need to pay the ransom, you need to meet those demands so that you can recover your files, your systems, to get your business back operational, you have to keep something in mind. OFAC, or the Office of Foreign Assets Controls, came out last year with guidance. Here's what they said. Pretty much, it is illegal to pay ransomware threat actors who deploy ransomware and demand payments, because in many cases, those ransomware funds are funneled to nations that are on no-pay list. They might be funneled to pay terrorist organizations, to pay sanctioned countries like North Korea, countries like that. And paying ransom is illegal. So if you are in the predicament that you have to pay ransom, there is a process that you have to go through doing an OFAC check with the Office of Foreign Assets Control, checking that the ransomware strain you're dealing with, the threat actors you're dealing with are not on the sanction list, and it is not illegal to pay them. Paying a sanctioned entity can result in big fines and a lot of trouble. The guidance that OFAC put out in October of 2020 stated that fines and penalties could be up to $20 million, in many cases much worse than the ransom or rebuilding your organization. So you're going to want to be sure that you work with your attorney if you have to pay the ransom to go through the proper OFAC checks on the proper channels to validate that the entities you plan to pay or you intend to pay the ransom to are not on these sanction lists, and you're not going to get yourself into legal trouble. The final tip that I want to give you is to develop some kind of system for managing your to-dos and your incident response. It can get very, very hectic responding to a ransomware attack or any cyber attack. You're trying to keep a business functional. You're trying to keep systems operational so your business can function and make money. You're trying to respond to this ransomware incident. You have to be aware of the legal obligations, the legal ramifications of every decision you make. You have attorneys involved, you have incident response teams involved, you have forensics teams involved trying to gather data, figure out how this happened. You have your business leaders involved wanting to keep the business moving forward, and it gets hectic. Develop some kind of system or program for managing tasks and to-dos, who's assigned what, when those tasks are complete, what's next, what's order of importance, criticality, to balance between the investigation, the response, keeping the business running. Develop some kind of system for managing that. You can assign tasks to people, have them report back on these tasks when they're completed. You can use some kind of management system, something like Trello or in Office 365. You could create a task and to-do list card displays, and you can move these tasks through a process of being completed. You can color code them as far as their criticality level. You can assign them to individuals, add notes in there, and everyone has access to this board and can see how the company is moving forward, how things are progressing, how the response is progressing, what things are next on the to-do list, what has been done, what should be working at this point. And having that central communication point, that central point where everything is organized, can be very useful. You might want to set up daily meetings with your incident response team, your attorneys, business leaders. Maybe that's twice a day, to facilitate that response, to guide the response forward so that, again, the business keeps moving forward, the legal obligations are met, incident response keeps moving forward, and everything works together. Now I have a bonus tip I want to give you. And this bonus is, be sure that you keep the business leaders and the executives on board with what's happening. As cybersecurity individuals, as IT individuals, we can get very focused and tunnel vision on cybersecurity, the technology, and we forget about the business aspect here. But we have to remember, we are stewards of the business. Our job is to keep the business secure so it can move forward and make money, right? Our job is to help the business make money. So it's very important that business leaders are kept abreast of what's happening. So be sure that you very, very clearly communicate with business leaders the progress you're making, the challenges you're facing, what your next steps are, what you're prioritizing. And different business leaders might want different levels of detail from you. But overall, this is a mistake we've seen in a lot of incident responses that we've helped with, is that security people, IT people, are not keeping the business leaders abreast. Business leaders get frustrated. They don't understand what's happening. They're not kept in the loop. This can all lead to frustration, feeling like the department's not doing a good job, getting rid of people, getting rid of your job. So be sure that you develop a communication system. Maybe twice a day you update the business leaders. These are the tasks you have to do. This is what you're working on. This is your findings. Keep them involved. Keep them in the picture. Everyone will be happy. Don't forget, we have created a ransomware response cheat sheet. We have a link for it in the notes, in the description of the video, that you can download for free. It's completely free, and it will help you if you find yourself in the unfortunate event that you have to respond to a ransomware attack. Before we leave, be sure that you hit the bell notification and you subscribe so that you're notified when we release future videos. I'll see you next time.